All right, time to take a look at the New Master electric spray gun. Okay, so we got our funnel. All right, so I'm not sure what this is. We'll get to that later. So one of the main things to making sure that this thing lasts a long time, just making sure that it's clean. So every time you use it, clean it out really nicely. Make sure everything is open and free, and then even if it does get plugged up, you can use this to unplug it. But it's still a good idea to clean it every time you use it. We got 3 different nozzles, but this is important. So any paint that you put in, you want to make sure that you're getting all of those particles out. So these are filters, and it actually comes with quite a nice pack of them. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, 10 of these filters. So you put your paint in there, and you can see this screen on the bottom. That is going to screen out any of the thick material that is inside your paint. So that way you don't have to worry about that spray gun getting clogged up. So very nice that they included these. So this is the motor assembly. It includes the handle. It has a nice rubber grip on here, which is great. A little back heavy, but once you put everything on the front, it's going to be a little bit better balanced. And we do have a fairly thick cable on here, which is good. And I like having these over the battery operated versions because I don't have to worry about the power going out on this one. Then we have the container and the front nozzle. So I do like that this thing completely comes apart and make it a lot easier to clean this thing out whenever you need to. We do have measurements on the container, and the top one says 40 ounces. So this can go up to 40 fluid ounces. You got 40, 30, and 20. And then for the nozzle on the front, you can just kind of loosen that up and you can orient that whichever direction you need that to go. We got the tank hose right here. It does come with a thumb nut, so that's nice, so we can make sure we keep this thing nice and clean. And then we got the trigger with our stop, and it looks like this thing just clips on like that. Okay, cool. We also got this little baggie. It's got caps on there, and it has an extra section of hose. So if you ever get that one gunked up, you can just take that thing off and completely replace it. We also have an instruction manual. And this is interesting. This is actually saying that this is a viscosity cup. So the idea behind this is that we're going to put this into our paint. So we're just going to scoop that up, and then it should completely drain out in 100 seconds or less. So that's how we can decide whether or not that paint is thin enough. So if we're using an oil enamel, it should run through this cup in about 25 to 40 seconds. Oil stain, no thinning required. Lacquer sanding sealer, 25 to 35 seconds. Lacquer, 25 to 35. Automotive finishes, 20 to 40 seconds. And then latex paint is follow the manufacturer's recommendations, but it does say that you may have to thin it out more than what the manufacturer recommends. It has to be able to run through this cup within 100 seconds. We can see that these nozzles have different sizes holes in the end. So it says that the white one is for sealer, stains, enamel, varnish, and dyes. Red is for polyurethane, chalk, and milk type paint. And the black one, which is already installed, as for low viscosity primer or wall paint. And then the gray one, the largest one, this is for latex plus primers, primer, wall paint, latex, and oil enamels. So depending on the thickness of the fluid you're going to be putting through, that is going to determine which nozzle you use. So I can loosen this up. Oh, okay. So this foam disc right here, that's what that foam disc was. So this is just to seal this container against the gun. And I do like that they have this nozzle offset. So you can have it forward like this if you need to spray down, or if you want to, you can point it back like that so you can spray up and hit the ceiling a little bit easier. Oh, wow. So that has quite a bit of strength. You can spin this out. And that's just going to stop against the handle. And it does have a little guide right here, so if you spin this clockwise, that's going to bring it in and you're going to have more pressure. So the first thing we need to know is if this is water-based paint. If it's water-based paint, we can thin it down with water. If it's oil-based paint, we need paint thinner to thin it out. The way to check that is you use some rubbing alcohol and you just put it on a cotton swab and you put that on the paint and kind of rub it around. If that paint starts to soften up, then you know that it's water-based paint, so we're going to use water. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to be oil or water-based, so I just tested it and I found that it's water-based, so we're going to be using that. And we want to get it really well stirred up so that when we get our sample, we know that we are exact and we're not going to be messing that up. So to start out with, I'm going to pull it out. So I want it to just make a nice thin stream. So we're going to thin this down a little bit. So I'm going to get my filter and I'm going to start adding paint. Now I can tell already that this is super thick, so I'm going to add some water just to give it a little hand. And it is best to have a separate container for doing this, but this is going to work for us for right now. And start. Now you're supposed to top this entirely off whenever you're doing this test. So I figured I would just reduce that time by about 3/4. But we are definitely too thick, so I'm going to add some water. Now, the thinner you make this, the more likely it's going to run, and you don't want that. But if it's too thick, then you're not going to be able to get the spray through the gun correctly. So there's a fine line. That is actually looking just about right. So let's go ahead and test that again. So we're at 45 seconds now, and it's not completely empty. It's getting pretty close though. So I'm going to thin that out just a little bit more. And that should probably do it. Okay, 30 seconds. And of course, that wasn't completely full, so that is just about right. It is nice to know that all this, when you're done, can be cleaned up with some water, or you can use some rubbing alcohol if you really want to get all the little cracks. Wow, that actually works surprisingly well. So, I was going to be painting that. Yeah, that works very nicely. Cool. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. So overall, that is a pretty nice little spray gun.